This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse. Jessica, I'm so excited to do this with you today. I mean, hello, Fargo season 5. I was so excited to read so much of your bio and stuff. And I know we're going to get to a full circle moment. I want to start there though. For you to have Frances McDormand be the person that you're just gunning for, and then end up on a series that she is kind of, it's Frances. I just want to know how that feels as a full circle moment, just to get started.
Oh, yeah. She's definitely someone whose career path, character choices I aspired to early on. So it feels great. It feels really nice.
I mean, especially working on screen, you're hitting the 10-year mark. You've been working a lot prior to that in theater and so many other things. But I love that Bill Esper always says it takes 10 years to hit a mark where you can call yourself an actor.
Well, I've heard the same thing. Like when somebody said to me when I moved to LA, they were like, it'll 10 years to the day, you'll start booking the roles you want to book.
Here we are. I'm so
Here we
excited.
are.
And here we are. You did it. You did it. Okay, but let's start in the beginning. So dance was the jam. Dance was the thing that you were thinking might be the profession.
I've danced my whole life. Photography is actually what I originally thought I wanted to do. I was really into photography in high school, and it feels the way that I approached photography kind of feels the same way I approach acting.
So as far as photography, do you approach acting then? Is it more visual for you where you start from a visual place?
That's not exactly how I mean it. It's more like I grew up in New York and I started taking photos of city life and people on the subway or on the street. And it felt like this eye into someone else's moment, their day, their life. And that's what I love so much about acting and storytelling is that you get to get these glimpses into I feel like you get to live 1,000 lifetimes in one.
Yeah. And I do very much like that voyeuristic part of it too, where like you're studying is all day, right? Going to the grocery store, sitting on the subway, watching people, and then being able to integrate that and play in that world. So then how do we go from photography, then we start into dance? Because I feel like that dance bridge into acting was a big part, like your movement into acting was really your transition into that kind of being the focal point.
Yeah, I bring all of those experiences into the acting that I do. I mean, I'm grateful for the dance training that I had. I started in ballet when I was young, and then I continued in modern and performed a little bit out in LA after college. And I'm grateful for the training because it allows me to make physical choices for characters. I don't think that's something in this moment in time that I hear people talking about a lot. Like,
Mhm. No.
but it's something I really value. And especially, I get more liberties on stage, of course, than I do on screen with my big, crazy choices. But yeah, I'm grateful for that training.
So you started with dance and then did you stepped into mime work?
Oh,
That
yeah.
is
Oh my gosh. God, you really going way back.
well,
Yeah.
because exactly like you said, movement is such a big thing. And I know you kind of started in theater and then transitioned to television and film. But I feel like a lot of actors, I was just coaching earlier, a lot of people that are in a conservatory and trying to get them to be comfortable moving, for a tape now or moving for an audition. There's such juxtaposition to the thought process of what you need to be as an actor. Okay, I'm going to be still. Now I'm on television and film. So I really love that your basis of training in getting into the work comes through your body. And then I got excited to see like, oh wow, she didn't just go from, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna do dancing. Now I'm gonna go to Broadway." That you actually stepped even more into the body. I didn't do mind work, so please correct me. You're going from dancing, you're expressing even more. Explain to me what that training was and how you even discovered this.
Well, it just so happened that in the theater department, I was an art history major, so I wasn't a theater major, but I spent a lot of time in the theater department in my college. And there was a guy named Thomas Lebhart there who was like the one of the heirs to this technique called corporeal mime that a man named Etienne Decroux in Paris in the 50s developed in his basement. And it was very kind of like elite. It was like a very elitist art form. But what we know as mime today, like Marcel Marceau, like I'm in a box, that all came out of Decroux's work. But Decroux's work was more like, it's really fascinating. It's hard to describe. I think I used to call it like cubism of the body because it's just kind of like he was fascinated with like describing daily activities. He would make these vignettes like the washerwoman and just describe these daily activities, but break them down in the same way that Picasso would break a physical form down. So it's hard to describe in words, but it's cool.
I did some research on it and I was like, this is fascinating. And I was hoping you could shed light on how. So, because then you go over to Paris and London, right? So then you're over there studying for a while, all different kinds of art forms. And then did you start theater there in London?
No, well, I did start theater in my last year in high school. I did the Three Sisters at the boys' school. I went to an all-girl school, and then over at the boys' school, they were doing Three Sisters and they needed girls. So I went over there and I did Three Sisters. And even though I've done all these other things from that moment on, from that very first play, I was sure that this is what I was going to do with my life. I knew that that
And
was it.
was it theater the thing that really wanted you? Because I'm curious that the transition to television and film, or are you going between the two? Are you jumping to stage in between doing all of your work on television now?
I didn't have a very developed understanding of what the film and TV world was. I came at it much more through theater, dance, perform the live performance arts. But I hit a ceiling in New York. I was creating a lot of roles in theater basements with amazing playwrights.
Amazing playwrights. Can we I
Amazing.
mean, the Pulitzer Prize, you were working with Adam Rapp a lot, originating
Yeah.
a ton of his roles.
And like, I think my name's probably in the front of the Sam French book of Bingo with the Indians. But, when that play particularly didn't move to Broadway, but there were other plays that would like get bigger and move, and then they would sort of recast with stars of Law and Order and stuff like that. And so there was this real disconnect, and I was really confused and curious about what that was because I was like, put me in, coach. I want to
Yes.
play.
Yeah, you're like, "I
Um,
originated this. I'll speak for you." You're like, "Well, why not me to be on the stage? Clearly, I can do this." So then is
um,
that when you decided, "I'm going to then write, direct,
I'm
and
giving you all these like sort of like hints that are leading to nowhere because no, not exactly. Like then it was really just the cold weather in New York one winter, and I just like I realized I developed a bad attitude. We were like locked out of some theater deep in Bushwick in a snowstorm. We were supposed to do a performance for 12 people, and everybody was having a snowball fight, and I was sitting there like I just was like, I lost my sense of humor about any of it. And I was like, oh, it's time for me to leave New York. I was like,
Yeah.
I need some sunshine. I had a friend who was in the directing program at Cal Arts, and I came out and I crashed on her floor in Chinatown. And I went to a show at the Groundlings because it was like the only ticket in town that I could afford. It was $14 at the time. And I was like, whoa, what is this? How are they doing that? And then I also got this like very dark sinking feeling of like, oh shit, now I have to know how to do this. And this is going to be a long, but I was just like, was so captivated by Edie Patterson and Jim Rash. I mean, I stumbled into a great show.
Yes, you
Um,
did. Yeah.
so then I was like, okay, well, I guess I want to see what Groundlings is all about. And so I bought a round trip ticket to LA, never ended up using my other my
The
return flight,
return. Yeah, yeah. And so
and the seasons never changed. So like a decade went by and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm here now.
well, now it's working. So now let's get into the business of it because I know people listening are like, okay, she's got all this great training. She knows how to move her body. She's working with her voice. She knows how to not use her voice and communicate. You step into Groundlings. Do you have an agent manager? How do we find the teammates that start bringing you the opportunities? Or are people coming to Groundlings and then you're starting to get opportunities to audition for television and film?
Not really. every part of this journey has been a bit of an army crawl.
Mhm.
I have a team now of agents and managers who I am so psyched about and so proud to be working with. That took me a while to assemble.
Mhm.
You gotta kiss a lot of frogs.
Speed dating. I like to call it speed dating. I'm like, you don't need to stay for a while. You're like, no, this isn't working. Okay, next. Like, I think when you're starting your career, you don't it takes a second to figure out what kind of instrument you have, right? So I remember 3 years ago, I had an epiphany one night. I woke up and I was like, oh, I play class and trash. I've been doing this for 17 years. Look at my reel. I text my manager and I was like, hey, class and trash. This is where we're going to go for 2020. And he was like, what? And I was like, look at my reel. I'm class and trash. Why did it take me this long to figure this out? You can put me in a trailer park or you can put me over here. This is where we need to hang. This is what I want for this year. And he was like, wow, okay. So now it's a shorthand between us. He's like, this is so trashy. It's so you. Let's go. But it takes you a while to figure out who you are as an actor or where your strengths are as an artist. So how can you find the best teammates to serve that? It does take some time to start to figure out their strengths, your strengths, and where do those meet, right? So
Yes. And I think a big part of that is I love what you said about how you're identifying what it is that you do, your brand, for lack of a better word, and how to embrace that and how to work with it and make it work for you, and then how to communicate that to your reps. I mean, there's this thing I think that a lot of actors get into where I'll speak for myself, where I just love the work so much that I'm like, I'll do anything. And I've got range. I can do this, I can do that.
and you do. They like
But
to,
well,
but
that can be hard though when, sometimes folks want to hear from you, like, what is your goal? What do you want to do? So it's good to be able to know that for yourself and say that for yourself.
yeah. Well, that's what that was going to be one of my questions for you is you start in comedy. I'm still really curious stepping into Groundlings when you were able to start working, or did you realize, shit, let me go do my own stuff so somebody can actually see me on screen, see me have some footage because you did what it was called, alternate sides.
Oh
As
gosh, yes, yes. I wrote and produced that before I left New York.
that was before you left. So you did
Yeah.
have some tape coming out here just to be able to show something.
Yeah, I had a little bit of tape, but that's not why I did it. I really just wanted to experience, what it was like to put something together on my own in this new world. I actually didn't start in comedy though. I actually started in drama. My first jobs out of college were all with Shakespeare companies,
Mm.
and which is also some comedy, but it was a lot of drama as well. So I came from sort of like a strong dramatic theater background and stumbled into the Groundlings, stumbled into comedy. But when I got there, I was like, oh, this is kind of what I've been doing all along anyways. I just would rather have played the nurse than Juliet. I would rather play Caliban than Miranda. I like creating character. I like oddballs and weirdos. And so that's kind of, it was actually, it doesn't sound like it, but it was a not very natural progression.
So then you start actually auditioning for television and
Yeah.
film, which is a totally different beast than workshopping a play, originating a role in a play. It's called That One Audition. I don't know. You probably didn't go this far back. I farted in an audition while running in a bikini, not once, but twice. And that's where this podcast spawned 15 years ago. So I would love
Wow.
to know your transition. Not that it was around flagellation, but the transition, because so many actors are always like, I'm transitioning from theater into television and film, and just the audition process for that seems to have a learning curve to it. It might take a few years before they start to kind of understand and get how to change that process. Was it a learning curve for you?
Huge, huge. And I didn't do myself any favors by starting at Groundlings. One of my very first auditions was for a show called Super Fun Night. And the role that I auditioned for was actually initially cast with Edie Patterson. So that made me feel like, oh, I'm kind of on the right track because I think the world of her and I thought she was so amazing. And then the show moved to a different network and they recast everything and it was cast with Lauren Ash. But I remember I would think I was in a casting directing workshop or something. Those workshops that they used to
Yes.
do.
Mhm.
And I met the casting director there and I went in and I made all these choices about this character. I don't know what I was doing, but it was so wrong. And it was so probably theatrical and big that I just remember they were just like, and I remember her being like, I don't know what to say, but I kind of want you to just pretend you're do the whole thing like you're moving through molasses because I must have just been so over the top and not even knowing it and thinking I'm crushing it.
Wait, but then didn't you end up doing that show? Super fun.
I had a co-star on it later. Yeah, a year later.
So they brought you back in. So that's the point
I
that
I don't know. That was for the pilot casting. So I don't know if I can't remember if it was the same casting director. The one who I think cast me as a co-star later on was Jill Anthony Thomas. So it might have been her. God bless her for bringing me back in if it was her. I have a bad memory for things like that.
no, but
Sorry, Jill.
no, probably kind of good too, where you're like, I don't need to remember what I did in that audition. I'm just going to go back in and I have different skill set now. So how were you able to, were you able to take that note? It's molasses, like, so you could just change on the dime right there. Or did it take some time to start to process how to play to camera versus invite the camera in versus give your full expression?
Yeah. I still don't know. I still don't know how to do that. I'm still figuring that out. I'm always wanting to do more. I got this amazing phone call recently from John Lee, who directed the Pee Wee movie.
Yes.
And we don't like chat on the phone often, but he called me and he was like, "Hey, do you remember that one night we were shooting at the Disney Ranch and I played sort of like the villain character."
Yes.
And he said, "Do you remember you came up to me and you were like, I think I want to do like a weird twitchy thing with my face when she gets angry. I want her face to twitch a little bit." And he was like, "I told you it was too much and you didn't need it." And he's like, "I think I should have let you do it." And he told me this is like 10 years later. Well, like 7 years later. But that's a rarity. Normally I try to do things and they're like, "Yeah, that's a lot. You don't need that." But I love throwing stuff out there because that's what I like to watch on screen. I like actors who are making big, clear, interesting choices that are unexpected.
And I think that it's important that you said clear, interesting choices. It's clear to story. It makes sense to you. It's still character building. You're right. I would rather watch Steve Buscemi do something because I just don't know what he's going to say or do. I would rather watch, like I want to be surprised. And the nuances of who a character is to me is more interesting than the person who's just delivering that procedural guest star that we all know exactly what's going to happen. And I don't necessarily. I was looking at your resume. It doesn't seem, yes, you have the SWAT and you have 911 on there and you have some of those. But for the most part, it's more you getting to shine in your creative choices versus being the easy slide and guest star. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that that has sometimes also worked against me because I don't slide in easily to a lot of those roles. I mean, I can, like I've done, like you said, I've done the 911 and I'm grateful for every job I've ever had. I love being on set. I love every job. But yeah, I think I feel like I can be of service more to a show if it's a character that is requiring some bold choices to be made, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
absolutely. Okay, so then I have to ask, because you have such extensive different variety of training and backgrounds, when you do get an audition, would you walk us through, besides reading the script, how you prepare specifically for the audition and making those clear, bold choices? Like, how do you meditate and those ideas come to you? Are you going just off the page and looking at story and kind of trying to figure out, like, how do you construct your idea of what you want to put forth?
That's such a great question. And I think in theater in New York, it was so different because you're always in the room with the writer and when you're creating characters. So it's an actual conversation between you and the playwright about who this person is. And then you in real time can throw things out there and they can be like, yay or nay. It took me a while to understand just how much I need to respect the writing of the sides I get. So I think when I first started out, I would get a gist of it and be like, okay, I get what it is. Let me show them what I can do with it. But it's actually really important to communicate through your audition to the writers, like, hey, I see what you've written. And I've taken into account every word you've put on this page, including the stage directions, including when you've italicized something or not. And I want to make your work sing. It could just be me, but from in my experience, the collaboration happens a little bit more once you get the job and you're on set.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think a lot of audition is like letting them know that you understand what they're going for, understand the tone of the shows.
Yeah, so the when you are getting it, once you mind the script basically for all of those cues of what they want the story to be, then do you kind of step into more character creation, or are you going straight into preparation of the actual words and lines? I'm just so curious. And I know it's different for every audition. So you can choose one that you
Yeah,
kind of want to walk us through how you like to craft.
it totally is different for every audition. And it took me a while to tell myself that that was okay. Because there are some auditions that just don't require that. You're like, oh, I get this. Let me just have fun. Let me just
Yep.
like, and there's, and then you have to know yourself as an artist well enough to know what level of preparation is going to read as like too much prep versus like just being able to throw it away if it's a character who's just kind of got a lighter undercurrent. Like for Pepper, for Pee-wee, I really workshopped that. I really made some bold choices and went in and was like, this is what I would do. And there's lots of other things where, but I used to like pull my hair out over making sure that I did the same process for every audition. And now I don't feel like I have to. I feel like it's okay if I'm like, I don't, that's not what this requires.
So for Pee Wee, when you said workshop stuff, where you're like, let me try this, just rehearsal at home. Let me try this. Let me try this until you landed on something that felt like it was activating your instrument and that you were mostly interested in portraying.
I remember I worked a lot with my friend Adam Corson. He was in my acting class at the time. And I think, I mean, he was so brilliant at comedy and still is. He's still here. And yeah, I think we just played around with it a little bit. At the time, the really important thing for me, and this was something I had from theater training, was to just, I would never have even come to a an audition practice not being off book
Mhm.
because I was always taught in theater, you really can't do the work if you don't know the words. And that did work for me. It's complicated with the amount of auditions you get and how quickly they come in now. And also with what we've just fought for in the strike of like not having to be off book.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm curious, what do you think about that?
I mean, I literally just had this debate this morning because some people like to use teleprompter now. And if you know how to use a teleprompter and make it work, great for you. Some people still like to hold their sides. Depending on the audition, I can't connect or be able to portray what I want unless I am memorized. Or it's just sometimes even the way that I work and I know the words then, right? Because I like to study behavioral patterns. I kind of reverse engineer some stuff. And then that innately gives me the words. I know they're requiring us not to be on book anymore, but I just don't feel like I can give my best if I'm not. That's just how I work. And sometimes I don't have the time. I've got a kid, I'm doing 5,000 things, so I'm going to try and do what I can to be able to give them. But I just feel best. I love, Philip Seymour Hoffman was just like, your audition is your opportunity to act. So, and you know how it is. There's sometimes it's feast or famine sometimes. So I really like to get to go and play. And especially now that we're in our homes, we're taping or, we're over Zoom. So you kind of get to play for a while if you have somebody there that wants to play. So because you alternate so beautifully through comedy, drama, I really want to know the whole process of the Fargo audition from like it dropping into your inbox. Was it a taped audition? Yes. Will you walk us through the whole thing? Because also we know what Fargo is. So it's not like, I did the first season of True Detective. Nobody knew what it was. So it's different when you're doing a pilot, right? But when you're doing a show that has what it has, the pressure is a little bit different. So I want to know how you handle the pressure, how you felt about it, the whole circus.
It's, I think maybe I felt less pressure because I felt like it was such a long shot. I was like, sometimes, and I like doing that. I like if it's something that I'm like would kill for, then I kind of like being like, there's probably already an offer out, just have fun with it. So I
Mhm.
just had fun with it. It was one self-tape.
And they booked you off tape. Oh,
But here's the thing that's Noah Hawley. He knows exactly what he wants when he sees it. And
mhm.
he says he's never made a mistake.
I would agree with him.
I agree with him. I mean, he's next level brilliant.
Well, and also to play Agent Meyer, what was it, multiple scenes?
There were 2 scenes.
2 scenes, that's it. So you coming from the background of so much movement and stuff, and I watched the first few episodes last night. What were your audition scenes?
This is what's so fascinating. It was the first 2 scenes. It was the hot tub scene and the courtroom scene. Yeah. So episodes 2 and 4, I think, or
Mhm.
5.
How'd you do your tape? I'm just curious because also once you get selected, just to meet and you're like, "Pin, done, boom." You don't have to go in, you don't have to recreate it. You didn't get any insights. You didn't get to have that, like, director, writer, playwright interaction of like, "What about this? What about this?" Because you could do so much.
It could have gone a million different directions.
Mhm.
And that's the fascinating thing. I don't think I nailed it in my audition. Noah just saw something that he felt was right for the role. And then when I got to Calgary, we had a conversation about her and who she is. And so what I end up doing in the season is actually, to me, doesn't look exactly like what I did in the audition at all. And I
Really?
look different. We cut my hair. Yeah, I look different.
So, what was the biggest takeaway then after working with him? Because there's so many, or even not even him. Look at some of your co-stars that you're working with, like just being able to sit and observe. I mean, some of the accent work. I mean, it's just remarkable. It is a play that we're watching. It's some of the best
Yeah.
writing. So, I would love to know some of your biggest takeaways that you're taking into work moving forward now.
I feel like I learned a lot about moving through this industry just from talking with and watching Lamorne move through the world in the industry. And he's also so hilariously funny and just like and a phenomenal actor. So that I always felt like I was learning a lot around him. And Juno Temple was pretty astounding to work with as well. I don't know, there's so much going on, as you know, like when you're on set, there's so much going on. You really almost have to be like a little crazy to just absolutely shut it all out and not care or notice any of it and just be 100% committed to what you're doing. And so that's hard to do, but she's a master of that. She really just she stayed in the Minnesota accent the whole day that she was, or the whole week, I think. I don't know what she did on weekends, but we didn't hang out. But, and then what was great about it is that even though she was just wonderful when you're between takes as well, and the loveliest, warmest, most wonderful human, but I think it seemed like she had structures in place for herself in her brain that allowed her when it was time to walk back onto set after, lighting takes an hour to set up or whatever, that she could just go right back into this. She was so there, so in it. And it's this small thing. This is going to sound crazy because it's kind of like, of course, but it's like you could tell that she was like, this is my job to do this.
Mm,
Does
mhm.
that, I mean, it sounds crazy because, like, of course, that's your job.
No, she's
But
taking the responsibility. She's not there. And let me put maybe some possible words in the mouth that because I wasn't there for the
please.
experience. But, you sometimes see actors maybe people pleasing, right? They're over at talking to Crafty. Me too. I had to break that habit where it's like, oh my gosh, hey, be my friend, blah, blah, blah. 20 years later, I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta. But it took me, I didn't start doing that till a couple years ago. I was wanting I'm so excited. It's like, I'm at summer camp. We're all doing this thing together. This is so
Yeah.
great. And then I would be so depleted, or it would take me a take or two once
Yes.
we got in there to drop back in because I was outside of myself, people pleasing all over set.
Yeah.
And
Totally. And when you're people pleasing, you're just in yourself. You can't really people please in character for it is.
it's so much of what it is, and I think getting to watch other people take ownership over their job, and delight in it and do so well, gives you the permission to be like, "Oh, shit, I could oh, yeah, this is my job. Imma do that. Imma do
And
that."
that not only is it not rude, which is kind of like in my brain, I'm like, that's rude if you're not like, chatting it up with Crafty. Not only is it not rude, it makes the whole day smoother for everybody because you are doing your job 110%.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it's if any younger actor is listening to this, God bless. I hope that because when you start out, your frequency of working might not be to the density that you want it to be, right? So you're so excited just to be there that your emotions of you as the actor kind of take over. And then once you start, looking at your resume, once you started in 2012, 2013 of doing television and film, there's not been a year that's gone by that you haven't worked. So you are always working. What?
Yes, and that's not always what it feels like on the inside of a career. I look at people's IMDb pages and I have to take it with a grain of salt because I know what it feels like in between jobs.
Let's talk about that because that was going to be my question. It feels like you're working every single year, but sometimes it might be 3 or 4 episodes of something. Sometimes it might be more. Sometimes it could just be one.
One day.
So, what do you do to fill your cup or sustain the mental health that we need to not implode in between the opportunities?
About 3 years into my life in LA, I started saying, "Oh, I think that that's actually the job." Is maintaining whatever it is you need to do physically, spiritually, emotionally, so that when the opportunity does come, you can show up like happy, joyous, free, and grateful for the job rather than like burnt out, stressed out, white knuckling it, and that you can actually show up on set and enjoy and be present with people around. And it's something different for everybody. I'm super lucky that I have a home at the Groundlings, that I made it through that program and that I'm a main company member there because I can always be writing and performing there, which keeps me busy. It keeps your brain busy. But I think it's all just like it's all smoke and mirrors. It's just like how do you keep how do you keep your brain busy?
How do you keep your brain busy? And what are your checkpoints for when it does slide into winter? I call that winter whenever we're like a little bluesy and a little like, well, is this ever going to happen? I feel like every actor might have it annually. It might last for a day. For some, it
Yeah.
might last for a few months. But then yeah, exactly what you said, what pulls you out of that so you don't stay in winter, right? So you can go back into spring. You can remind yourself that you are a working actor. You're somebody who is working constantly. Also, because of the Groundlings, you have that. That's your anchor, I would say,
I started teaching there, which also is so amazing to give what I have and what I've gleaned from this career so far to other people. That feels amazing just to be able to like talk about war stories or like give little anecdotal things or suggest acting classes for people or whatever. It feels so nice to engage with people on that level.
What are some things that you wish you would have known earlier on that would have helped your mental space? Because we can't like change the past of what would have happened. These kind of credits needed to stack, these jobs needed to stack, life needed to happen the way it was. But what could you give advice on where you're like, don't worry about X, Y, and Z. I shouldn't have done this or that.
Ugh, your questions are all so great, and they just let me know that you've thought about it and gone through it all so much as well. I think something I would have liked to know on a cellular level that I know on a cellular level now, but still doesn't always help me, is just that there's no way to know the way that this industry is structured. There's no way to know what they're looking for exactly. So you just do your best and then you go home and eat a yogurt or something, Like that's what my friend that I toured in a Shakespeare company with would always say. He would say, just do your audition, go home and eat a yogurt. But it's
Yeah.
hard to let go of it because
Mhm.
everything feels like such an opportunity.
Mm.
But, you know, I once worked with Bryan Cranston. He was a director of an episode of Modern Family that I did, and he said the same thing that Philip Seymour Hoffman said that you talked about the audition being the opportunity. That's the opportunity. That's the performance opportunity. So you go in and you give your best performance, and then you say, "Great, I gave a great performance." And if anything else comes of it, that's like icing on the cake, which is wild because we all need jobs. But
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, that's kind
Yes,
of
that's the jam, is figuring out that balance, and sometimes I just wonder after interviewing as many people as I have and doing it for as long that sometimes that's just time before that you can realize that. So as many times as people have heard me say it on mic before, heard other wonderful, talented guests say the same thing, until you cross that threshold of, changing it over, you don't know, right? It's just like you just don't know what you don't know. And sometimes time and experience is the only thing that will give you that knowing of comfortability.
totally. And it's the same thing on set as well with making choices and giving something a shot and not asking for permission at every step of the way, not because you shouldn't ask for permission necessarily, but just because nobody else has the time and because they want you to take ownership like you said earlier. So just kind of I don't know, it's like I'm getting this visual of like just like a cylinder that you're within that you are responsible for and you are both responsible for it and it's okay and that's also what you're required to do. That's the job.
That's the job. Okay, so from a business standpoint, because you said earlier, and I love that are sharing this, that like now you have the team that you're like so excited about. And it's taken 10 years to get here. How did this new team piece together? Because I have young actors write to me all the time. How do I get an agent and manager?
I definitely went knocking on Odenkirk's door, like, but I was lucky that Naomi had seen a bunch of my work, and Brooke at the time had seen my work at the Groundlings, so they were somewhat familiar with me. And I had my agent at the time. I kept saying, "Can we please reach out to them? Can we please reach out to them?" And he was like, "I think it's a bit of a stretch," but eventually I got him to reach out. And then he was like, they had just been talking about you because I saw your work on stage. And so I went in for a meeting and he was like, just play it cool. I did not play it cool. I was like, I think you guys are amazing. I love that it's an office full of women and I want to work with you. I didn't play it cool at all.
The work will get you the right team. People want the focus is always, let me get this team first together that's going to give me the opportunity. I think you need to focus on the work and inherently, however it is, whether you're making your own content while you're on stage, then the teammates come to you because they know what they're selling. They know what they can do. When you start off at the beginning of your career and you get an agent and manager, they're going to test you. So then it doesn't feel like a good relationship because you're being tested. They're going to throw 10 auditions at you in the first couple months, and then that might fall off because they don't know your work quite yet. Whereas later, they know your work, they know what you can do, and now they're going to be great teammates.
That's such a great way to put it. And as you're talking, I'm like, oh, that's why there's no trodden path in this career because everything you're talking about today is like all these like coming into your own as a performer and getting the right team and different things happen for different people at different times. Like some people are really self-possessed and are just like, I don't care what you think of my choice on set, with this the first time I've ever been on a movie set, I'm going to do my choice, and they're like and then they just do it and then so they're able to come into their own and have some confidence and sense of agency earlier. And whatever that is, I think is just, the stars and alignment and whatever else. Who knows? It's not something you can train for or want enough. It's just something you grow into at your own time, I think. But like you said, you got to have that going first and then the right teammates will come and then you kind of weave together. And the lovely thing about this career is that you might come to one of those moments where everything's kind of weaving together and then and then you move away from it again.
Mhm. And then you shift. You have no idea, right? You have no I want to know because peaks and valleys of this career, or what I always say is you ride the wave. Your wave might be really big. Your wave, Fargo is a big wave. It's a big wave. And then the wave eventually comes to shore and then you have to catch the next wave. But when you're on that wave, how many wonderful opportunities are flooding your way right now because of Fargo? Has it opened the doors?
I think so. I think I can see like the auditions that I'm getting are a little bit different. And it's nice to walk into rooms and have people be able to talk about the season as they're watching it. And that feels really good. So yeah, it's an interesting time because we're just coming back from the strike. And so it was like this like rev of the engine, and then it was the holidays. And then so, it's hard to see exactly what's going to unfold this year, but hopefully good things.
What do you want next? Because I always like to leave some of these interviews. Sometimes it feels like you're one of those people where it's a community of people that are listening. They get to watch your rise. They get to see the moves that you make next. But where two or more are gathered, I always think that like whatever you want next, we can hold this space for you. And I can't wait to see it transmute. So what is it that you started your career, Francis, is kind of like a pillar of what you want to do. You just checked that. For me, you just checked that. So what's the next iteration of what you desire to do?
I think it's a continuation of some stuff that you put so beautifully about creating your own work and coming into your own. I endeavor to come into my own as a performer more and more and more, because I know that I'm offering the best I can to any given story when I'm owning that space. And that's why I looked at Juno Temple and saw someone who is utterly owning the space that she's in and the job that she's there to do. And I just hope to continue building that muscle so that I can make more and more unexpected, exciting, weird choices.
I love your choices. I can't wait to see
Thank
you
you.
on screen more because it is just one of those you always pay attention a little bit more. You lean in a little bit more when you have characters that you get to really step into and develop and give that clear, specific point of view, unlike anybody else can do, because it's your instrument. The way your brain works really puts it all together so beautifully. So, thank you so much for
Thank you.
allowing your doggies to jump all over you and still share some insight with us.
Oh no, I'm so sorry, guys. Well, I'll never sit on my couch again. That's what for an interview.
It was great. Where can everybody follow? Are you on Instagram? Where can everybody follow along
I'm
with you?
on Instagram. It's just my name, Jessica Pohly.
And Fargo, watch it, watch it, watch it. You have the arrangement. You also wrote that. Are you hitting the festivals with that?
Yeah, the arrangement is going to be at another festival end of February, the Hollywood Shorts Festival, and hopefully lots more this year. The arrangement is a quirky short film that I wrote and produced, and I'm in, and my friend Brett Moline directed it, and yeah, it came out of a sketch that I wrote at Groundlings.
Thank you so much for doing this. This is so fun.